It's my pleasure to welcome here director of the film I suppose you have seen right now, film called Dezertéři, Damir Markovina. Hello, Damir. Nice to having you here.
Hello, and many regards from Zagreb, and I greet all the visitors which are joining us and all the viewers of Dezertéři online. Hi.
Thank you, Damir. As I already mentioned, your film was awarded by the main award of Opus Magnum section of Ji.hlava Film Festival. So I hope the ceremony and the award pleased you after finishing the film. Is that right?
Definitely, and I'm very grateful, and I would like to thank to the jury once again, and the whole outer team is very happy to receive this award and the award for the sound design that we also got on Ji.hlava. For us, it's a big thing, especially regarding my film. It's a student film, which was actually my thesis, my finishing film of the Academy of Dramatic Art in Zagreb, at a documentary film directing master course, MA course.
So it wasn't your first time in Ji.hlava, right?
It was my first time in Ji.hlava, definitely.
It was.
So
okay.
It was. I was never before, and I was very, very anxious to come and to see how Ji.hlava IDFF looks like, and I was very, very, very impressed and very happy to participate in many talks which took place in the industry, and to see many beautiful things. Of course, to meet many of my interesting colleagues.
That's good to hear. So the competition every year in Ji.hlava is tough. So I think your film had to beat quality, good films, documentary films, which were part of the Opus Bonum section. So let's just discuss more about the films which the audience, I suppose, have seen at the festival or during the online festival this evening. It is a correspondence, and it is also a diary of distance, diary of people who are trying to get in touch or keep in touch for a long time during the troubled period of the 90s in former Yugoslavia. So when was the first moment, or when the first idea of this conversation, of this letters being sent to each other, and the concept of the film, when it started, when it first appeared?
Well, just after the film, we had a short Q&A, and your colleague who was conducting the Q&A, then he asked me why the film is named Dezertéři. Mm-hmm. And that is, of course, the first logical explanation is because we all deserted from war, and I wanted to make a film which would be in a way tribute to my generation, the people born between somewhere let's say early 70s and the late 70s, which the war caught probably at the brink of maturity. So not already formed in a mature way. Let's say we were just to make our rites of passage to the world of the grown-ups, and then the deserters, of course, we deserted from the army, but then we deserted from each other. So basically, as you beautifully said, it is a sort of diary and the collection of letters of falling apart. Those letters, basically, I carried with me for the last 30 years. So I changed, in my lifetime, I changed several countries of residence. I changed only in Zagreb, 17 apartments. But those letters always stayed with me because they were so intimate, so delicate, so strange in a way they were written. And then when I started thinking about this film, I read them again, and I found if you read them good enough, of course, inside there is the chronicle of war, the chronicle of exile, but it's also you can see the roots of the war inside of them, all the little chauvinisms, hate, and you can see progressing in these letters, the distance between us, love, empathy, but also distance growing apart. There is a generation falling apart, and there is also the rise of hate toward other nationalities and the insecure future that we were all facing at the time. Because for this brief, let's say, period of time from 92 and then to let's say 95, but I'm only dealing with the letters from the 90s, 92 and 93, we were everything to each other. The parents were gone, some in the war, some in the concentration camps, some away. And the sincerity and the empathy of these letters and the ache you could feel in them was very, very interesting to me. And then, working on a script, working on a screenplay, trying to reduce these letters to something that can be used in a film. Then I realized that this is very, universal and very emotional material. That's when the idea started. Then we went to have some, let's say, test filmings and in Mostar mostly. And we try to discover what kind of film language we will film expression, film form we will use to create this film.
The film starts with opening sequence when the iconic bridge in Mostar is falling apart, is being crushed in the river. Is it some kind of symbolism? Is this bridge, which is obviously iconic, everyone who sees it recognizes Mostar, is it something which you worked since the beginning? Is it a symbol of the broken bridges and restored bridges, because it was restored in 2004, if I have the correct information, so it's quite recently restored. Is it something which underlined your relations with your classmates and with your friends?
In the end, probably yes, but that was like the last decision I made. So basically, when we were speaking in the editing, and especially with my mentor Goran Devic and everything, so then always was the discussion to use the bridge or not to use the bridge. Because personally, when I started planning the film, then I said, I don't want to use it, because there are many films about Mostar. It was widely televised, this image, but when we finished the film, and since of course it's very difficult to film Mostar without mentioning, of course, the bridge, and I'm using the bridge extensively in the film. There is a monument of the broken bridge on the Croatian side. There are people jumping from the bridge still, from the new bridge. It's very hard to film in Mostar without the symbolism of the bridge. Then I realized that maybe if I try to use it in a different manner, like completely apart, just at the opening on the film, it could be a good introduction to everything that we made later on. So basically, we finished the entire film, and then we were thinking how to use the archive of the bridge into the cut. We tried several different versions, and then I liked most, and I think it works best, the version when you see only one take, that take, iconic take, where the bridge falls down. No editing, nothing, just one shot, as it was, completely documentary. And I spoke with a guy who actually shot it in the 93 when it was shot down. Then that story is also can be another film, but then it's because he was using, like, he had for the entire period of war, like only one VHS tape. He was like constantly recording all over. So basically, that is the only material that exists, so which you can see in the film.
Yeah. I would like to stop for a moment just to remind our audience that they can obviously ask their questions, or they can have remarks on the film if they've seen it, and if it left a trace in their hearts or minds. So please feel free to ask Damir about his film, which won recently Opus Bonum section at this year's Ji.hlava Film Festival. And we will slowly continue to discuss this film further. One of the letters says that Mostar is the most boring place in the world. So is this some kind of feeling which you might have, or some of your friends might have back in the 1992-93?
Yeah, well, it was when I screened the film first for my professors on the Academy of Dramatic Arts. This was a big debate, what could we change, what could be better, and I think then someone said, because you put this scary music at the end and everything, and you're scaring us the whole time with with your direction and the way the film was edited. Maybe, maybe if you put some of the pop songs, which were used, that maybe that could put a little bit to end on a little bit more happier note. Then I said, then probably I would put Laibach, or something of that kind, because that was the kind of music we were listening there. Going back to your question, Mostar was before the war. Mostar was like very developed city with a very strong cultural scene, and it was on the brink of becoming, like a very important cultural hub.
Yeah.
So basically, then we had like 3 theaters, one of them very alternative, who were winning prizes, around Yugoslavia at the time. Several bands very well received in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but even wider. And then it was all more or less, because I think it's only natural, produced and created by the generation that I belong to. Now, after the war, this generation who were educated and let's say raised in a way to feel home internationally all over the world is let's say scattered all over the Europe and all over the world, and none of them live in Mostar anymore. I think it's the greatest loss that the country of Bosnia and Herzegovina endured, basically. So us, because we went as refugees all the way from Norway, from Sweden, England, Italy, not mention Croatia, Serbia, of course, and Canada especially, and the United States of America. A very small amount of people came back. So basically, it was for me, of course, and it's the place of my childhood. It wasn't a boring place. It was a very, 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 very rich in a way, and we all had plans, and none of that plans came true. Yeah. But then I'm very happy to see that my colleagues now they're still living in the space from Warsaw to Amsterdam to Toronto to Zagreb, and we actually saw each other just before the summer, because we had like the 30th anniversary of the prom that we never had because the war broke out.
Yeah. So there are a lot of feelings in the letters. This is the way how you decided to express the moments of in the middle of the 1990s, and also some of your feelings probably going backwards to that period, right? What is the major feeling you have going back on the timeline to the 1990s, to the period? Is it anger? Is it some kind of sadness which we feel from the film that you had a lot of ideas back then, you had a lot of dreams, and none of them could be fulfilled because of the war, because of the violent conflict?
Well, for me, I generally do mostly films that are more or less autobiographical in a way. They're connected. They're connected to the themes that are part of my life or interest me in a way. For me, I didn't know where I'm going with the film. I wanted to do this because I felt I had a due to do this for me and for my generation. Not because for me it represents a kind of closure of that situation. And the film I did before, Wait for Me, was about my family, and for me it was also closure of many problems that we face, the many little misunderstandings that we care for years and everything. And for me, this was coming to terms with war at my city and with everything it brought to me, because I became a refugee. I left Mostar and I never came back. So I have a very bipolar and specific relationship with the city I grew in, and there was a lot of anger, but going constantly to Mostar to film this, and constantly thinking about ways how to film this, and creating the narrative of the film, and all the let's say the animations and the language. In a way, the language is not very good expression for describing a film, but I don't have better at this time. So basically, creating the special visual identity of this film made me reconnect with the city. So now I think I'm at much better terms with the city I grew up in than that I was before. I think it's, for me, it was the most I could hope from finishing this film. It's I leveled something which was bothering me for 30 years now.
Yeah, I think it's we can see that it's some fulfillment of a certain period, and also a level of balance which you must have found with your past and with your current feelings. Again, I'm asking our audience if there are any questions, or maybe we can ask our technical our colleagues if there are any questions. So just let us know. And if you're listening to us, please feel free to ask Damir Markovina, director of the film Dezertéři, about anything related to the film and to your experience with the film. Now we will continue. We called it a dialogue through letters, or through postcards and letters. We can see that there is a strong visual layer which is based on animated parts. It also helps us to reimagine all the spaces we are talking about, because we see the postcards and we see the postcards being redrawn and reanimated to a moment where we almost can't see the background. We can't see the original towns and cities. It's not only Mostar, it's also Istanbul. It's also many other places of the postcards where they were sent from. Is it something which you wanted to bring as a new dimension, as your, let's say, individual subjective relation to these places? Because the postcards usually use this, iconic buildings and iconic views which you have, and it feels that there must have been such a strong moment when you wanted to upgrade them somehow. Is it something? Have you a cooperator which you worked with on this visual layer of the film?
Of course. I work with a great Croatian artist, Marko Tadic, who is a visual artist and a professor at the Academy of Visual Arts here in Zagreb. But he also works a lot in the animation, and I think he had like a retrospective in Ottawa, just at this sort of film festival. And Marko works a lot with the archive images, and then installations he does with them and stuff. And I like the way he was working. So I interested him in this project, and he agreed to participate, to work with me as a head of the animation. And then we were thinking. My first idea was, postcard is actually a calling card. So basically, it's a calling card of the city. It's the representation of the city in a way. So there is always a problem, especially in documentary film, how to represent the past. What do you do with that? How do I show the Mostar or the other places where my friends went without actually going there and filming it? Because it would be, I don't think that would actually get along with the way I see film in the first place. And then of course it's I find this much more challenging, to create some kind of new way to express it in a way. And then the second idea was, I wanted to use the letters because this epistolary kind of communication is something that was very typical for my generation, but today it's not anymore. People don't write letters anymore. They write emails or text messages. So basically, the form, playing with the form of the letter, which we are also doing during the film. So deconstructing letters and using some phrases, small drawings inside, dates and everything, signatures and hello titles and everything. Then, a postcard is, apart from being a calling card of the city, is also part of that culture of epistolary communication that you don't use anymore. I don't remember when I sent my last postcard ever. And then in that plan, with that in mind, we started working on the actual animation. So then Marco had some ideas, I had other ideas. Then together we tried several ways. So he was tearing them apart. Then we started to use this black line, which is going around. It was, at the end, it had some kind of symbolism, apart from the very obvious one. It's my friends traveling as refugees, in exile from one place to another. It's also a line of, let's say, hate and anger, which goes all over Europe, only to explode in the last scene. Because I think for my generation, that let's say the sediment of anger and hate, I think, which is the true remnant of the war, is something that we probably will never get rid of ever. So that's probably like the war for the survivors. That's even worse than the ruined house and the house burned down. That what you keep inside, all the sediment it gives you. And I tried to make a parallel with that. And then we had, like, Marco made together with me in his studio. We were working like we made like 20 of the small films. It's a very slow process. It's a process of stop animation. So basically, we were using the software and and a camera, and then we played with with the white balance and everything, because I wanted this flickering image with which we can use as it adds the dynamic to these parts of the film. That was like the first phase was work on the postcards, and then it took a little bit longer to find the true, let's say, narrative way how to represent letters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it went really well, because it helped us to at least to imagine how many people actually and how many letters were written by these people. And also there is some kind of dynamics created by this creative work with the letters, with the letter representation, let's say. Just a practical question. When you worked with the postcards, have you been using with Marco, have you been using permanent markers, or is it just my observation?
Yes, it's a permanent marker. Apart from the one which is cut out, that he used a knife, of course. But but then it's in pre-production of this film. Then you realize there is a whole underground of people who collects postcards.
Yeah.
So basically, then I was probably for months, going to Del Campe and sites like that, and the various other sites, buying all the postcards of Mostar which could surface. So basically, you end up then in the end, having like 10 to 15 of the same. So basically, because it's always the same series, and then we had like the try and error. So basically we destroyed a lot of it before we actually made something that worked well. And then when we had one which was functioning really good, then okay, let's try to do something else with it. We played many colors. He also, there is also the way you can work with the folia. That's how we did a class. So basically you do it with a folia all over the place, and then you go in After Effects afterwards, which Luka Čizmak, another collaborator, he made additional animation at the end. So basically working in After Effects to put them on all, let's say, in the same frame, and to erase all the simple small irregularities that our analog work did with the postcards.
Yeah,
it was fun, actually. I learned a lot about this. So basically it's something which I think this kind of hybrid approach is something that I learned to love very much.
It's a quite popular approach to documentary filmmaking, or reflection of life, or your thoughts and ideas nowadays. And I think you proved that it really works, and it can extend the imagination of the topic, or of the story you are presenting. There is some kind of nostalgia with connected to the letters and postcards. You mentioned that people don't do it anymore. Do you still write letters and postcards yourself, or
very rarely? Really
rarely?
Yeah, I would love to. That after the film we spoke, then a colleague, one of mine from the States, said, but I only write letters to my mother. That's like the thing we have. So basically now it became a very niche thing, you know, to when you decide to write a letter or a love letter or something, it's a big decision. And but for me, you know, it was at the time it was normal. I had pen pals, you know, I would meet people during the summer, especially because my family originates from the island of Korčula. So basically then, you know, you would write them letters, send them postcards in a way. So it was normal. You know, the thing I didn't represent, for instance, which could be also another film, is when we speak about these letters and everything, is that nobody had a fixed address. So you can see the glimpse of it in the film. Call me at this number.
Yeah.
I will be on this address. But sometimes, and even very often, that is not address where you live because you're a refugee. You live somewhere else. So that the whole thing, for instance, to get a telephone call, you know, somebody would call and say, okay, I'm going to call tomorrow at 4. Can you tell Damir that to be there in the apartment? And then it was the whole, you know, process of connecting, which is now completely, you know, I forgot. I think it's unexplainable to the generation of the 17 years old today, as I was then.
Yes. Yes.
That's why, you know, that's why I decided to put it in the film, because if I'm making a film about us, about the lost generation of Bosnia and Herzegovina and probably Yugoslavia, then this was like the integral part of how we communicate. This is the glimpse of the world that passed and the world that was very much a part of us.
We visit many places through the letters. Obviously, it's mostly in the Balkan region, so most of the cities are repeated again and again. But there is also one city, Tin nad Vltavou, if I remember
Yes.
correctly.
Yes,
Who was staying in Tin nad Vltavou in Czech Republic?
It was my friend Šiljo, who he managed to get out from Mostar, and then he spent some time in Zagreb. His real name is Almir, and Almir then tried to cross the border, because it wasn't easy at the time, because we didn't have passports, we don't have Croatian documents. I got Croatian passport and document like almost a year later. So he managed to cross the border, and then he sent this postcard from Tin nad Vltavou, I'm here, and there was his friend Janita, who actually lived there, was a refugee there. So just tell the other idiots that I'm alive. So that's also in the film. Call them, tell them I'm alive, I'm here, everything, you know, everything's okay. So he was there for a while. And then if the last information I have about him, that he was in Australia. So basically then later on he moved and somewhere to Melbourne, and we were in touch for a while. I know he's well and alive. That's all.
Yeah, as I mentioned, there is a lot of traveling, just virtual traveling in your film. Do you feel you found home nowadays? You're living in Zagreb, and do you think that most of the refugees, or the film is dedicated to the people who are on the run, who flew? So do you think these people found their homes? Never mind if back in their original home or somewhere else, or is it just, do they feel still being refugees or being on the run?
Well, it depends on the definition of a home. I definitely found home, but what it did for me, that because the whole situation, war and post-war, made me apatride for many years, which I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I find it much that it worked well in a way of connecting with with some kind of more universal values. You know, because somebody asked me, what do you think the reactions will be? Because this was the world premiere. It wasn't screened. The film wasn't screened in Croatia or in Bosnia, or in Serbia for that matter. And then I said, probably the best compliment I could get for this film, that all the people that are very nationalistic or conservative or right-oriented, that will hate it in a way, because for me, being a refugee, being a patriot, being made to think a lot about identity at those times, I think it made me in the end, not related to any identity, because I'm much more oriented to what have I become than who I am by birth or by raising or by religion. I'm an atheist, so it doesn't really matter to me. Of course, I found home in Zagreb, and Zagreb for me is a place where I feel very comfortable and where I am educated. I'm in the part. I'm an activist. I live here. I'm trying to make my immediate surrounding better, but I'm much more connected to that. I'm much more connected to the urbis than to the country. I don't have let's say nationalistic approach or this thing. We are some kind of a tribe from here, from where. No. And I think that kind of identity where I'm trying to make my immediate surrounding better is something that I brought from this, being a refugee, having to fled from Mostar, then to Korčula, then from Korčula to Croatia, then from Croatia in Italy for a while, then to the United States for a while, and then back in Croatia and everything. So it's for me, all that trip, I think, made me in a way, gave me some kind of tools to be able to assess even this theme and this film and to make it.
You mentioned that it's that you are a generation which, and also in the film, there is a generation presented by your classmates who is probably forever affected by what happened back in the 1990s. Do you feel that there is more positive view for younger generation? You mentioned the era of these phone calls from the booths or from the home, like the permanent line, phone lines. Are the children or young people, let's say in their 17, 18, 20 years, nowadays, are they being more lucky in Mostar or in Zagreb that they can feel having some kind of future there? Their dreams could be fulfilled.
Well, that's actually a very good question. Of course, I'm not the one who can answer it.
Yeah, but I suppose
I'm
you are
much older.
You meet people and talk with young people, so.
No, definitely. But I think now, especially for instance, in let's go back to the 90s. So basically, the thing which happens that in Bosnia, let's say, all the free nations had completely different narratives about the 90s. So basically, completely different narratives about war, about who won, how it was won, how it was fought, and everything. And I think that this generation you asked me about needs to do a lot about the culture of remembrance in a way. They need to realize it for themselves. About the chances, they definitely have much more chances than we had. That's just being able to have an EU passport or scholarship at somewhere at the EU, or to freely cross the borders, which we could, but not in this manner. In a way, I think it gives them much more perspective, in a way, much more chances in life.
Yeah.
But I think then the education they receive nowadays here in Croatia or in Bosnia or in Serbia, for that matter, is let's say much worse than I had. So basically, I think my generation had in an intellectual way much more information and much more chance to realize what's happening for themselves. So here I see a lot of difference. But then again, for me it's hard to imagine how do they feel, because we were talking before about what being a refugee does to you. For instance, I have my parents at the time when the war broke out were in my age now. So basically now I'm 48 years old, as my father was, and my mother a little bit less. She was 47 when the war broke out. And they permanently stayed in that, let's say, in that moment. Yes, they moved on, they worked, and everything. But I couldn't imagine what would happen now to me here in Zagreb. Well, maybe it will with this what's happening now in Ukraine. We don't know where that will go further from there. It's a terrible thing. And for me, seeing the images from Ukraine seems to watch like the rerun of something I lived through, so I can relate to it very much. So if that would happen to me now, I don't know if I would be able to to move on, to continue to find a life for me or a home, as we discussed before. But regarding new generation, I think they have a lot of chances, and maybe maybe more, maybe not, but still they have a chances that that they need to use in a way. Maybe, you know, maybe when you're deprived of for a while of any chance, you respect it more. I don't know. For my generation, for instance, that was the case. So basically, you know, a lot of my colleagues, you know, they did very well later. You know, they got scholarships. They finished some very important schools, and you know, one of the guys who is actually in the film on his letters. He's in Warsaw. He works like very, you know, very highly ranked official in a big company and stuff. The other one lives in Amsterdam. The other one from the photo of my class is the chief of the great bank here in Zagreb, in Croatia. So they seized, after the war, they seized the chances they got. And I would like for the kids of today, for this generation, not to live through what we had to live in the 90s.
Yeah, but still, you mentioned that it's necessary to merge the narratives which are being told differently about the history, about the war. So this is something which the young generation probably could do or should do, maybe. To become with you know, many voices about what happened during the war and what happened after the war, and maybe also to cut the edges of nationalism, which always probably will be present, even though it's not that strong in these days.
That's the general idea that the first idea I brought to this film. Because it's for me, I think it's crucial to see through this lie of nationalism, because it's and then as Daniel Kirš, the great Serbian writer, said at the time, it is the last fortress of the villains, basically. And I cannot agree more, because I've seen so many, you know, I saw the worst in people hiding behind the nationalism, just because behind this thing which basically you cannot change. And then of course, you know, it's my national let's say heritage, but also identity is very complex. I was born in Belgrade. I was raised in Mostar. My father's family is from Dalmatia, so basically from the islands. One side is Croatian. I have a Serbian great father and a Bosnian Muslim grandmother. And you know, when they ask you to so black and white decide where do you belong, which was the statement I had to sign, so basically which I put in the film. So basically to allow me to become the part of the Croatian nation, to get a Croatian papers, which I needed to stay in Zagreb or to enroll into university, then I had to declare myself Croatian. Which for me at the time was, you know, it was a real problem, because then you have to take sides. So basically I have all my friends, some of them are Muslims, some of them are Serbian. Part of them flew at Belgrade, at Serbia. Part of them stayed in Mostar and were shelled by the same Serbian army where my other part of friends flew. And when the war broke between the Croatian Defense Council and the army of Bosnia and Herzegovina, then for me it became completely impossible to, let's say, choose sides. Not only to choose sides, but understand what's in the root of this conflict. So basically, that's the kind of choice that I think I would like to explain to the generations of today. So that probably that doesn't happen ever again. That they're, you know, they don't have to label themselves.
Yeah, I think. Well, I hope your film could be an important contribution to this, saying goodbye to all these borders and nationalisms and hatred, which was part of it. So I think we don't have further questions. So let me ask you last one or two questions. I would also remind our audience that you are also an actor. So I wanted to ask you which role is closer to you, or which how you switch them, if you switch them. I'm not sure if you are still an active actor or not.
Well, currently not. I think my definite choice, let's say, of profession is definitely in the authorship. So I will probably most definitely continue to work as a film director. I worked as an actor until, let's say, 2 years ago. I'm still in some kind of relationship with the National Theatre of Croatia here in Zagreb, where I work for more than like 20 years. And but I work much more in the outer part. I work some video installations for them and stuff. But why not? It's for me. I think that we are all in the business of telling stories in a way.
Sure.
And for me, it took a long time to understand what media and I think you need to choose your tool for the story very carefully. Some of them work better in the theater, some of them work great on film, but it's a different media. So basically, knowing as much as possible about both works well for me, because in a way, and the technique I used in this film, especially with the postcards and especially with letters, is in a way theatrical. So I created the black box basically.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do is create the inner space, something which is happening inside, and that's something where theater is very good at. So I don't know, you're probably familiar with the film Strbenka of Nebojša Slijepčević. He won a Doc Alliance Award in 2018 for that film. And then he was filming the entire time. He was filming the performance of Oliver Frljić, working on Alexandra. Theme was Alexandra Zec's death, very, very tragic event, and she is a Serbian girl from Zagreb killed by Croatian nationalists at the time. But he used this symbolism of theater, this black box of theater, in a very, very, very special way. And then when I spoke with him, then he told me that for him it was a very interesting experience, because theater is unfilmable in his experience. So basically, film is all about being here now and making a recording. And the theater is all about meeting, about exchange of energy between the audience and the spectator. But if there are ways you can use both. So for me, I will definitely continue to work in a film. I don't think I will work soon in the theater, but still, my training as an actor gives me some insight and some possibilities and some approaches which are probably going to influence my future work.
Yeah, I think you're more than experienced, and I suppose you found your mean of expression, your main mean of expression, even though you will choose more of them. So thank you, Damir Markovina. Thank you for joining us in such a late time this evening for the Q&A for screening of your film Dezertéři, which won one of the main awards, Opus Bonum Award at the Ji.hlava Film Festival. We wish good luck to your film on the festival journey, because I think it's only a start at the moment. And I hope we will be able to meet each other in person with your next film, maybe at another issue of Ji.hlava Film Festival.
It was really a pleasure. Thank you so much for calling me, and I need to salute all of the viewers, all of the visitors of the page, and thank them for watching my film. I hope they enjoy it, and I will be delighted to come again to Ji.hlava.
Great. We are sending greetings to Zagreb. Damir Markovina, director of the film Dezertéři, and wish you a wonderful evening, and looking forward for next program in Ji.hlava Online, which continues tomorrow evening. Thank you very much. Have a good night,
Bye.
Damir.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.